Declan Duffy is a controversial and complex figure in the criminal landscape of Northern Ireland. His life story intertwines with the turbulent history of paramilitary organisations, particularly the Irish National Liberation Army, and his eventual conviction for murder and involvement in several high-profile crimes. His journey from youth in Armagh to becoming one of the most notorious figures in Northern Ireland's criminal world paints a picture of both a troubled individual and a product of a troubled society. Declan Duffy was born in Armagh, Northern Ireland, in 1975. Growing up during the peak of the Troubles, the years marked by violent conflict between the nationalist and Republican community and Unionists and Loyalists, Duffy's early life was undoubtedly shaped by the sectarian violence surrounding him. The Troubles were not just a political conflict, but a way of life for many in Northern Ireland. Bombings, shootings, and clashes between the British Army and paramilitary groups were daily occurrences, and the atmosphere of tension and fear was inescapable. For many young people in nationalist areas like Armagh, joining a paramilitary group was seen as both a form of resistance to British rule and a means of protecting their community. These groups offered more than just an ideology. They provided a sense of belonging, purpose, and protection. For Duffy, the choice to join such a group would come at an early age, as the Irish National Liberation Army, a paramilitary organisation with ties to republicanism, began to recruit individuals like him, individuals who felt the oppression and the desire to fight back against what they perceived as the injustices of the British government. Duffy's involvement with the INLA began during his teenage years in the early 1990s. The INLA was known for its ruthlessness and its involvement in both the armed struggle for Irish unification and organised crime, making it an ideal vehicle for someone like Duffy, whose troubled youth seemed to align with the group's violent agenda. It was around this time that he gained the moniker Whacker, a name that would become infamous across the Irish criminal underworld in the years to come. Duffy's early involvement with the INLA was not without its controversies. He quickly proved himself to be both brave and ruthless, traits that would later help him rise through the ranks of the group. His willingness to take on dangerous tasks for the INLA was evident in the numerous operations he took part in during his formative years with the organization. By the mid-1990s, Duffy had become more deeply entrenched in the INLA, participating in various operations aimed at furthering the organization's political agenda. The INLA role was multifaceted, engaging in both armed struggle and criminal enterprises to fund their activities. Much of the violence perpetrated by the INLA during this period targeted British forces, but they also clashed with rival groups, including the Provisional Irish Republican Army, who were fighting for similar objectives. Duffy's role in these violent activities was significant, although he remained in the shadows, operating more as a foot soldier than as an outright leader. His rise, however, was inevitable due to his growing ruthlessness, reliability, and his ability to navigate the complex and often deadly world of paramilitary politics. In 1999, Duffy became involved in one of the most notorious incidents of his early career, the hostage-taking at the Ballymount Industrial Estate. Duffy and several other INLA members held 6 individuals hostage, further escalating his profile in the Irish paramilitary underworld. The situation turned deadly when one of the hostages managed to alert authorities, leading to a confrontation where Duffy's fellow INLA member, Patrick Campbell, was fatally stabbed. This incident put Duffy on the map as one of the rising stars in the INLA, furthering his criminal and paramilitary notoriety. However, the 1990s were also marked by increasing challenges within the INLA. The rise of rival paramilitary groups and the splintering of old alliances threatened to destabilize the organization. It was in this environment that Duffy began to carve out his own path, taking on more leadership roles within the INLA and orchestrating violent actions against both the British and rival factions. As the 2000s dawned, Duffy's influence within the INLA expanded. The organization, which had initially been focused on political violence, increasingly turned to criminal activities to fund its operations. Duffy, who had honed his skills in armed robberies and violent attacks, began participating in large-scale smuggling operations. Cocaine and heroin smuggling routes were becoming highly lucrative, and the INLA was deeply involved in these illicit trades. As an individual with strong connections both within and outside the organization, Duffy became a key figure in the drug trade. However, it wasn't just drugs that brought Duffy into the spotlight. His violent nature and willingness to carry out extreme actions led to his involvement in multiple high-profile killings. In 2008, Duffy's involvement in a series of attacks on members of a gang led by Freddie Thompson, a notorious Dublin-based criminal, furthered his reputation as a ruthless enforcer in the criminal world. The attacks were believed to be part of a broader strategy by the INLA to assert dominance over the drug trade in Dublin and other parts of Ireland. It was during this period of increased violence that Duffy also became associated with several murders, including the killing of Sergeant Michael Newman in Derby, England in 1992. The murder, which had been part of a larger paramilitary operation, went unsolved for years. But in 2010, Duffy was convicted of the crime and sentenced to 24 years in prison. Duffy's rise to notoriety was abruptly interrupted when he was arrested and imprisoned for his role in various criminal activities, particularly the murder of Sergeant Newman. In 2009, he pleaded guilty to membership in the INLA, and his conviction marked a turning point in his life. His time in prison, however, would not be the end of his criminal activities. While incarcerated, Duffy continued to maintain ties with his former associates in the INLA and was involved in several violent incidents within the prison system. His connections to the wider criminal world meant that he could continue to exert influence from behind bars, making him a figure to be reckoned with even from prison. In 2013, Duffy was released from prison under the terms of the Good Friday Agreement, which allowed individuals associated with paramilitary groups to be freed early in exchange for promises of non-violence and cooperation with peace-building efforts. However, Duffy's release did not mark the end of his criminal career. Despite being freed in 2013, Duffy's legal troubles did not cease. In 2020, he was recalled to prison after breaching the terms of his license. His return to prison highlighted the ongoing issues of reintegration and rehabilitation faced by former paramilitaries, as well as the continued tension between former militant groups and the criminal justice system. In 2024, Duffy lost an appeal that would have allowed for his release. He is now scheduled to remain incarcerated until 2034. However, in early 2025, Duffy filed new legal action to demonstrate his suitability for early release. He challenged a decision by the Northern Ireland Prison Service that deemed him ineligible for pre-release testing, a process that would allow him to be considered for reintegration into society. Duffy's legal battle and his continued incarceration have sparked discussions about the broader issue of paramilitary reintegration in Northern Ireland. While some view him as a relic of the past, others argue that his continued imprisonment is part of the ongoing struggle to deal with the legacies of the Troubles and the difficulties of balancing justice, peace, and accountability in a post-conflict society. The story of Declan "Whacker" Duffy is one of complexity and contradiction. A man born into a world defined by conflict, Duffy's early life and involvement in paramilitary organizations were shaped by the violent politics of the Troubles. Over the years, his transformation from a young militant to a ruthless criminal mastermind has made him one of the most notorious figures in Northern Ireland's criminal history. Though his criminal activities have left a trail of violence and bloodshed, Duffy's involvement with the INLA and his actions during the Troubles will forever be intertwined with the larger narrative of Northern Ireland's struggle for identity and political autonomy. His life story reflects the blurred lines between political activism, criminality, and the desire for power. As his legal battles continue and his reputation looms large in both the criminal and paramilitary landscapes, Duffy's name will remain part of the complex story of Northern Ireland's past, marked by violence, redemption, and the ongoing struggles of a society attempting to move forward. Whether he will ever find peace or reconciliation remains uncertain, but the shadow of Declan Wacker, Duffy's life, will continue to loom large in the annals of Irish criminal history. That is it for our video today. Like and subscribe and comment below what you think of Declan Wacker Duffy, and I will see you on the next video.